Hey everybody, happy Sunday to you. How you guys doing today? How's everything? How are you feeling? You good? You feel okay? You got some rest over this weekend? I hope so. Well, I'm doing good. As you already know from my video yesterday, I'm still recovering from being sick. I'm not going to try to push through all of those little series of Idaho Four videos. I'm going to do probably one at a time just because I don't want my voice to weaken too much. It's still kind of fragile and I'm still with the cold and all of that. So I'm considering all of that, um, at this time and while I'm here. So I have to be conscious of all that and try to preserve my voice. Um, but anyway, today I'm here and I want to talk primarily about the K bar knife. I want to focus in on the K bar knife and I want to talk about the effects of that particular weapon as the possible murder weapon. And there could be more than one weapon, right? Um, I have a I have a lot that I want to kind of go over, but I don't want the video to be too long because I value your time and I value my time also. And this little small series is meant to just go more into detail about things that are in my other videos, but I haven't really focused and discussed them. Um, I want to kind of start this video off just to lay a little foundation for that K bar knife. Um, I thought it was important because that is a uh, potentially the most damning piece of evidence against the suspect, Brian Koberger, right? The odd thing is, from just stating that, this is evidence that the prosecution is saying they're not going to use the DNA evidence. Now, we don't know if they use that DNA evidence in the grand jury, what they use to get the indictment for Mr. Koberg, but they're saying as far as his trial, the prosecution is saying they're not going to use that evidence now. Of course, my question is, well, why not? If that is that piece of evidence that places Mr. Koberger DNA in the house on the potential sheath of the possible murder weapon, that's pretty damning, right? My feeling is maybe they don't need the evidence. Maybe they feel that their case is so strong that that particular piece of evidence is not needed because they have so much other evidence, so many other pieces of evidence, physical evidence, and hopefully not just eyewitness testimony. Because as you can see, I have thick eyeballs too, right? And a lot of people do. So we can't just go off of that. And if the unharmed roommate on the second floor was able to see Mr. Koberger and he walked past her, the question immediately is, why didn't he unalive her? Why didn't he attack her? Right? And also, if she was out of her bedroom, did she not see Zaina's body in the hallway area, just like Brett Payne said he saw Zaina's body in the entry hallway area of the bedroom, just from coming onto the second floor. So visibly, I would want to know, well, why didn't that unharmed roommate on the second floor see the same thing? There's so many questions, but today in this video, we're gonna pretty much focus on the K-bar knife. Now, I do not have nor own a K-bar knife. I'm not really a knife person. At some point, I think I bought a knife on the road when I was traveling just a little pocket knife that you can open. But I found them to be quite dangerous because you don't want to slice yourself. And sometimes it doesn't shut and stay shut. So you don't want to have an accident. So I'm not a knife person. However, I wanted to learn a little bit about the history of the K-bar knife. So I just went online. There's a website about the K-bar knife and how it dates back to the 1800s. There is some ties to the military. At one point, the U.S. Marines used that knife. So overall, this is not like anything new. I think the most popular part of the K-bar knife is that blade is fixed. The reason I'm bringing this potential information forward is because in a stabbing, a lot of times with different knives, the knife, the blade will come it will come out of the handle, and also if the knife is not a fine quality, the blade will actually bend or break. So there is, I feel, an intent behind that sheath in that. Particularly, you would have someone that would be an avid hunter, someone that likes maybe to collect knives, someone that goes out into the woods, they cut things. Usually, typically, you're going to have someone that has something to do with outdoors, hunting, fishing, because you can use that knife for chopping, cutting. Um, but on a criminal side, in the criminal mind, you would want to use the K-bar knife because of its consistent reliability in a fight. By that blade being fixed, you don't have to worry about it bending, breaking, or coming out. It's not going to allow your hand to slip over the blade because there's a block, and that block is not going to let you slip, so your hand will not be cut in the attack. So, from the criminal aspect, you would be seeing someone want that type of knife for protection, possibly, or in a criminal way to use as a threat to coerce somebody to do something that they're not willing to do, or you may feel they're unwilling to do. So, you would use that to force them to do something. So, with that being said, I want to read to you what Wikipedia has on the K-bar knife. And I'm using Wikipedia because when you go online to the K-bar website, it is very detailed. They're very proud of the history of this knife, how it's been around for over 100 years, and how it's crafted and its use. So there is a lot of information online, and we don't know if this is the murder weapon. So I don't want to push that so much. And there could be possibly other weapons, right? There could have been more than one assailant. And the reason, why I think that logically is for one person to unalive four people. It takes a lot of energy to contain the victims, two people in one room, and then two people on a different floor in one room, where the attack is primarily contained in the room. Specifically because we know that on the third floor, allegedly, Kaylee fought back and that she had defensive wounds. Again, if Mr. Kohlberger is the assailant or one of the assailants, he did not have any defensive wounds on his body that we could see visibly on his neck, some parts of his chest, his arms, his face. We didn't see any defensive wounds. And I have a whole video detailing defensive wounds and that there is a high chance, a very high likelihood that in an attack, a, a vicious attack such as what happened in Idaho Four murder, that the attacker would be facing the victims very close up. In a knife attack, it's not like a different weapon like a GUN, right? It's a very close up experience where you're having to get within um, 18 inches of the victim, arm's length, maybe about 18, less than 2 feet of the victim, where that victim may be fighting back, scratching, kicking, screaming, things like that. So we would likely see defensive wounds on the assailant. And because we know that allegedly Kaylee had extensive defensive wounds, and we also know that allegedly Zaina, who was on the second floor, had extensive defensive wounds. It is likely that they fought back and they were able to physically touch, attack, assault, fight back against the attacker. Um, it makes it hard to think that one person would be able to confront two people in the same space. I know that they feel that in the beginning, the roommates allegedly were sleeping. We know from history that in an attack where there are defensive wounds shown on the victims, that typically they are not sleeping because they would not really have the time to come out of sleep and respond in a knife attack. Um, Pictures of the scene and the bodies, if they were not altered. Now, we don't know because we know the crime scene was contaminated with the people coming and the police not wearing proper gear, protective gear. But looking at the crime scene, the photos, the video, that can kind of help us figure out if the victims were sleeping or if some of them were sleeping, or possibly even hearing. For example, if the attack is starting on the third floor, maybe the victims on the second floor were awoken by the alleged attack. The sounds of the alleged, the attack, the attackers fighting, yells, different things like that. So I want to kind of start off with telling you about the K-bar, and then I want to discuss a few other things, but I'm not going to keep you long in this video. So according to Wikipedia, the K-bar is the contemporary popular name for the combat knife first adopted by the United States Marine Corps in November 1942 as the 1219C2 combat knife, later designated the USMC, so that's the United States Marine Corps, Mark II combat knife or knife fighting utility, and subsequently adopted by the United States Navy as the U.S. Navy utility knife Mark II. K-Bar is the name of a related knife manufacturing company, K-Bar Knives, Inc. Okay, so I'm going to show you this picture. Okay, you see that? So that's kind of one example of what a K-bar knife would look like. They can have different edges, but overall, you get the idea that this knife was considered a knife that you would use in war, in military, in combat, in fighting. The reason I want you to know this is because as I kind of bring this short series about the Idaho Four, I want you to gain some knowledge um, in applying your thinking skills in the situation at hand with the four victims. We have to understand that some may think that this kind of, someone just decided one day that they were going to do this crime and unalive people. I don't think so. Um, there's a lot of reasons why I feel this way. Firstly, the house was a house that contained 6 female roommates. Now, there has been a lot of discussion about the 6th roommate. Was the 6th roommate living there? Did the 6th roommate already move out? Um, my overall opinion, I guess we would have to, of course, wait for trial, but my overall opinion is this is a fact that this house contained all women. Now, when you're looking at this with a criminal mind, you're looking at this as women in this house would potentially be vulnerable due to certain aspects of how they were living. If you include any drinking or possibly drug use, we know that there was not a lot of window treatments, blinds, and coverings covering the windows. So potentially someone could just be looking at the house. Now, yesterday I did a video about stalking and specifically was Kaylee being stalked or did she have a stalker, or for any point did any of the girls have a stalker, right? The reason that all of these things are coming into play and I'm bringing all of these ideas together is because at some point we have to start seeing that either there was a target on the house or there was a target on the female roommates. Again, the house was full of female roommates, all college bound, college age students. Very beautiful girls, very, very pretty, bubbly, great personality, outgoing, active on social media, all things that if someone had a stalker, they would use to their advantage. And if you're interested, please check out the stalking video from yesterday, right? The point is, to me, it is unlikely that someone came upon and decided in a sporadic, spontaneous way, I'm going to do this today. I don't think so. I think that this was planned. I think that the person that did this had an interest in knives, maybe had a knife collection, maybe would play with knives, would go hunting possibly. And I believe that they were, and I'm going to do a video about the comfort of being in the home doing the unalivings at 1122 King Road. That will be a separate video, but I'm going to mention that a little bit here because it appears to have been a planned attack, bringing the weapon with them, not going to the house. Again, something unfolding and then going into the kitchen and taking a regular kitchen knife that you use just for preparation, cutting meat, um, cutting up food, different things like that. Just a regular utility knife that is sold everywhere. No, the K-bar knife, it's a more expensive knife. It's I've seen it priced because I did go and kind of do a little looking. It's starting at about $90 and up to about $130. It's not a kitchen knife. It's not the size of a kitchen knife. It's not made in the form of a kitchen knife. This is a hunting knife, a combat knife, a fighting knife, a knife that you would use in a manner that is not for food preparation, okay? So I'm saying that because I want to get certain things in place that there's an understanding that whoever did this, they probably knew the victims. They probably had access to the property. They probably were around in the neighborhood. This person is able to blend in to the college atmosphere, to blend in as a college student. It may have been a fellow student, maybe someone that even lived nearby, maybe just watching them, looking in the windows. Again, the stalking behavior, the peeping Tom behavior. Probably another college student, maybe someone that even attended the university or lived very close to the university. I think that the threat, the the potential of what happened was probably going to happen no matter what. I don't think the fact that Ethan's presence, whether they knew it or not, was enough to stop what had happened. Um, I don't think that they were afraid, that they were concerned, that they were bothered that there were six people in the house. They were ready because to me, the attacker or attackers had a criminal past, a criminal history. And the reason I feel that way is because they had no qualms about viciously attacking the students. It was not a one or two stabbing wound situation. The students each received multiple stabbings. And according to reports, Kaylee received an upwards of over 50 stab wounds. This is something that would be motivated with rage, anger, contempt. Um, Usually, we see these types of incidents where there is some type of romantic or love interest. And the knife is a selective weapon. This is something where the actor, the assailant, is wanting to cause a lot of harm, a lot of damage, a lot of pain. You're trying to injure, gravely injure the victim. Most people are not using a knife in this manner without premeditated planning. I have seen fights. Say you're coming out of a club and someone bumps you, and there's an argument and a knife is pulled. This is not that case. This is a multiple, and you can do this at home, right? See how much physical energy it takes to. You can get a piece of styrofoam that comes from maybe a shipping package and stab it 20 times and try 50 times. How fatigued you would be on top of imagining someone physically fighting you back, trying to restrain you, stop you, prevent you from continuing the attack. The sad thing about the attack that's not really being discussed is in a knife attack, you can't stop it. There's really not a lot of ways to prevent, to interject in a way to stop the attack. They try to tell you, grab a piece of material and use that to try to take the weapon. Um, they tell you different ways to try to block, but really, particularly with the K-bar knife, because of the way it's built, um, that victim is not going to be able to stop that knife attack. And more than likely, that victim is going to have wounds that will bleed out without help. They're going to bleed out from the stabbing. So, excuse me, um, I just want to kind of imagine if Kaylee and Maddie were on the third floor, and if, as it's reporting, the attacks started on the third floor, you already can imagine there's going to be a struggle. There's going to be fighting. There's going to be screams. There may be furniture falling over. There may be some pounding and different sounds of a struggle, a fight. Um, because they're saying that Kaylee fought back and Kaylee allegedly was laying on the far end, the outside of the bed, she would be the first. Possibly if she was laying in the bed or sitting on the bed or sitting up in the bed, she would have may have been the first to receive um, those strikes from the K-bar knife. And she's fighting back, struggling, trying to block it, trying to take it, trying to prevent the swings, the slices, all of that. And you're hearing a struggle, you're hearing a fight, you're hearing commotion, sounds, screaming. You may hear Murphy barking, barking, barking. Um, and as in the PCA, when the unharmed woman on the second floor is saying she thought that Kaylee may have been playing with Murphy, this may have been when the attack on the third floor was going on, possibly. For Maddie to be closer to the wall, laying in the bed, being wedged kind of between Kaylee and the wall, um, I'm guessing and thinking about that and feeling like she may have not received as many stabbings because she just didn't have the ability to move. She was in a small space on a smaller bed, wedged between the wall with the ability to get up, sit up, get out of the bed probably was difficult. So if that's kind of what we can perceive as happening on the third floor, if the killer or killer and engaging Zane, okay, I think I'm back. Excuse me. As I was saying that if the killer or killers is coming down from the third floor to the second floor and have initially encountered Zaina, whether it be Zaina coming from the kitchen or in the hallway or coming towards outside of her bedroom, it could be due to her hearing the sounds of what's going on, potentially on the third floor and coming out, and possibly even laying down on the bed. So we can also kind of look at this in a similar way with what happened with Kaylee. Zaina is potentially woke. Zaina is potentially being confronted or confronting the killer or killers, and she's fighting back. Now we know from the PCA that the unharmed woman on the second floor is saying that she heard noises, she heard um, Someone saying that there's someone in the house. That could have possibly been Zaina. She also allegedly said she could hear crying. So, given that detail, and also just using our imagination, we can kind of feel that Zaina may have either come upon the killer or killers, or they confronted her in some way. And now the attack is on. And again, Zaina is fighting back, struggling, maybe trying to take the knife, trying to block the knife, and she receives extensive defensive wounds. Now, again, this is the third person that the killer or killers have encountered. Did they expect, or did he or she expect to encounter this many people? I don't know. Um, I would think they would have to know, with the size of the house being 3 stories and with all of the cars parked outside, they had to realize um, that potentially there was multiple people in the house and possibly friends over, possibly a love interest, boyfriend, and because there had just been a game that night, it could have just been extra people over. I think with the house having a lot of the lights off, maybe the killers thought that they were sleeping. We just don't know. But we have to think about this in a manner where we're looking at Brian Koberger as the suspect. And again, now there's an extensive encounter with Zaina, and she's fighting back. She's received extensive defensive wounds. That means cuts, hands, face, body, head, neck, chest, usually the upper area, and possibly the legs too. But in just thinking about that, we have to also go back to our alleged attacker, assailant, murderer, Brian Cooper. Again, he does not have any defensive rules. That does not mean that he was not involved. Again, there could have been multiple people involved, multiple killers. And again, now with Zaina being there with her boyfriend, Ethan, what was that battle like? If Ethan is either laying down, sitting up, or possibly asleep, was there a struggle? Did he hear the same things that Zaina heard? Was he awoken or was he aroused um, and quickly responding if Zaina is attacked on the near exterior of the bedroom? Because that attacker or attackers have to now address Ethan. So again, if there is an attacker or attackers and they're using this cane bar knife, this person is going in greatly with an upper hand, but also having to know that whatever weapon they're going to use against all of these people, potentially that would hear them, that would hear the struggle, that could possibly take their phone. Typically, everyone has a cell phone. Call 911, call for help, possibly run, get out of the house, possibly go to the kitchen and get a weapon or have a weapon in their bedroom. So many things that could have derailed this person's intentions, because it's very hard to say what you can do if you're starting on the third floor. There's people on the second floor and the first floor. Maybe someone would try to get out. Maybe someone would try to get to their car and drive away, or run to the house that's closest by, or call 911, or call a friend to come over out of fear. Um, this is where it's very hard for me to imagine that neither 911 was called at the timing, the alleged time of the murders, and also no one tried to run. They didn't try to get away. They didn't intervene, to my knowledge. Um, Now, there has been some discussion. I'm not going to not be truthful on here, that there was a sixth roommate, and that sixth roommate possibly was in Kaylee's room on the third floor, and that person also was attacked and taken to the hospital for treatment and care, and that the police may be concealing that information. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I feel that in a situation like this, the the way that people respond, um, you're going to call 911. You may try to get out. You may try to run. You may have a weapon and try to use that against the attacker. Excuse me. God bless me. I apologize for sneezing. But overall, my point is, and where my focus is there was definitely a point where, with the things that was happening in the house that was ongoing, the sounds, the cries, the yelling, the screams, with those paper thin walls, not only would there potentially be the sounds, the screams and all of that, but the fear. Why not call 911? Why not call for help? Why not try to get out, get away, get in the car, go to a neighbor's house? All of these things really, they just don't make sense to me. And with the situation with the uh, knife, and that the killer or killers was able to go from the third to the second, or the second to the third floor, and 911 was not called, no help. Um, and I'm going to do a video on that 911 call. I haven't heard the 911 call, but we've been told what was said. And it's unreal. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. Another piece of the story that doesn't make sense. And I can recall in the beginning when Ethan's father had said to one news outlet, like, what is the truth? We want to know the truth. We don't want you to create a story. And because everything that's coming out, over this past year, it doesn't make sense. It almost feels like this stuff is like made up. And how could all of these things just on top of each other that don't make sense happen? It's very hard to understand and also process what is being said, because it's so far from human behavior. Um, it's very difficult. So I want to review something that came out in the beginning. And it kind of made me wonder in a way. Um, it made me wonder because I noticed that the police had pretty much dismissed what was being said in the media. And I didn't know if they had taken things very seriously, or if they were just dismissing what was being reported because they didn't want people um, to kind of look into it and talk about it and kind of link it to the Idaho Four murders. But I I know through stalking, and how stalking starts and how it develops and it grows into more, that it is very possible that before the Idaho Four murders on November 13th, that the killer or killers actually did this. I believe that is possible. So I just want to go over this again, and I've talked about this before, but I just want to give a thoroughness, a completeness to this discussion about the K-bar knife and potentially Was the cave bar knife used to harm the dog in the incident that occurred about 3 weeks before the Idaho Four murder? So let's just review that one more time, and then I will be done. So the article, again, is in the New York Post. It's dated November 22nd, 2022. And the writer is David Proper, and it's titled Cops Rule Out Link Between Skinned Pet Dog and Murdered University of Idaho Students. So I'm going to read this article pretty quick and we'll wrap this up. A skinned pet dog found dead last month, and the grisly murders of 4 Idaho students are not connected, local authorities clarified Monday. Detectives are aware of a Latah County Sheriff's Office incident of the report of a skinned dog and have determined it is unrelated to this incident, the City of Moscow Police Department said in a press release. The police department statement comes after news reports about the 12-year-old mini Australian Shepherd death in the community on October 21st that led locals to wonder if it was tied to the quadruple homicide. The pet's owner, Pamela Colbert, told Fox News Digital Monday that she was told by a Latah County Sheriff's Office supervisor the skinning wasn't done by an animal. This was a human that did this, she said she was told. Moscow police also made clear Monday that a case of other dead animals left on a resident's property was not tied to the murders of victims Ethan Chapin, 20, Zaina Kernodle, 20, Madison Morgan, 21, and Kaylee Goncalves, 21. Detectives are also aware of a Moscow police incident of the report of deceased animals left on a resident's property, the department said. This was determined to be wildlife activity and unrelated to the incident. As police are still searching for a suspect, Chapin was remembered in his hometown in Washington State Monday. Hundreds came to McIntyre Hall in Mount Vernon, Washington, to remember the young man who attended the University of Idaho with his 2 other triplets, according to reports. Today, we're here to honor the life and legacy of our son and brother, Ethan Chapin, one of the most incredible people you will ever know. Stacy Chapin said outside the memorial Monday afternoon, according to Fox News Digital. Ethan Chapin joined the Sigma Chi fraternity along with his other brother, according to his obituary. Since attending the University of Idaho, Ethan lived his best life. He loved the social life, intramurals, and tolerated the academics. He also continued to play sports, part of his obituary states. Ethan loved life. He laughed continuously. He smiled when he woke up and was still smiling when he went to bed. He was kind to all and a friend to all. Okay. The mysterious slayings occurred in the early morning of November 13th, leaving the community on edge and many university students getting out of town ahead of Thanksgiving break. The 4 students were all stabbed multiple times as they slept, though some had defensive wounds, police said. Another press conference regarding the case is scheduled for Wednesday. So I just want to get back to my point, which is prior to the Idaho murders on November 13th, 2022, there was a skinning of a dog. There was also other animals that were unalive and placed on a person's property. Now, we know the history of serial killers, and we know that one of the things that we typically see with them is the harming of animals. We've seen it with Ted Bundy, and we've seen it with Jeffrey Dahmer. Now, I just want to press upon this community, this criminal investigative forensic community, that the police are saying that they do not believe that these two incidents relate to the Idaho Four murders. But we do not know that. We know that Murphy was not harmed. However, leading and before the murders, there were different animals that were harmed. And this is something that we see that leads up to the progression where then a person is then attacked. Now, can I say this for sure? Can I put this in connected? No, because we do not have the murder weapon or weapons. We don't know the type of knife that was used to harm either of these two pets, the dogs and then the other animals. But we know that it was grisly, that they were injured, that they died. And this can lead up. This can be a starting point where the person is progressing. Now, to wrap this up and to put it into a perspective that will be very simple, someone that selects that K-bar knife in an incident like this, again, is seeking to cause harm, to unalive, to injure, and probably kill their victim. Just in these two incidents with the animals and the dog, very grisly attacked, skinned, unalive, leading up to the Idaho Four murders. The police can discount, they can continue to rule things out, but I'm not going to forget this. When I'm seeking the killer or killers, I believe this person has a criminal record. I do not believe this is a first go. I think it grew, I think it led up to more, and I think there was a decision made. This was a planning to do the murders this night. I don't think they had to practice driving around in this neighborhood. I think they were able to blend into the neighborhood, blend into the community, to walk around amongst those students in this area with the police presence. Police stopping, driving, patrolling, asking questions. They were comfortable. They were not afraid. They were not afraid to unalive 4 human beings in the night with other people in the home, in other properties very close by, with cameras. With cameras. In this time where everything is electronic, on video, on the phone, they were not afraid. Nothing was going to stop them. And the sad part is, it's almost like misdirection. You know, we're being told to focus on this when really we just have to go back to the beginning with the known evidence, with the known activity, with the known behaviors. You know, there is a profile that could be set up by the FBI for who would do such a crime. What age would they be? What race would they be? What sex would they be? What occupation would they have? You know, what would place this person in this area being so comfortable in a compacted area with hundreds of people living by? Constant flow. You're not able to hide. A constant flow of people coming and going, driving, parking, walking, drinking, partying. Like, you're not hiding. They were able to blend into this community without any fear. I believe it's somebody that they knew. They just didn't know that this was going to happen to them in this manner at this time, the way that it did. And it happened with the level of brutality, rage. And I think that's also why the crime scene was a mess. It wasn't that it was so much a knife attack. I think that it was in a frenzy of rage, of anger, of contempt, of a level of violence that we really don't see that often in crime scenes. You can see a lot of shootings. There's distance there. A person can drive by and shoot a gun, for example. We don't see a lot of stabbings because stabbings are really up close. You have to be right up on a person to stab them and stab them this many times while they're fighting you back for people. You just don't hear that. Most people would opt to use a different weapon. But this person, they were prepared. They were prepared. They viciously attacked, unaliving all of these people and leaving two witnesses behind. Why? I just don't understand it. It's something that you really don't hear about so much, that people are left behind alive unless they know who did this. Unless somehow, some way, um, the attackers were injured and just could not attack them. But in that PCA, it never said that she saw blood, that she saw a knife, um, that she saw a person that was disheveled, that they had, blood dripping off their shoes, that there was a half of blood leaving. It's like they took their time. If that's even true, I'm going to say allegedly. Until there's a trial and there's some cross examination where a lot of my questions can be answered, I don't know what's true because a lot of it just does not make sense. A killer is not going to walk past a potential witness and leave them alive. Not after unaliving four people. And those were two people in the same room. You're just one person. Um, so uh, I just wanted to take some time to really just put on the record that the K-bar knife was a lethal weapon of choice. If that was the murder weapon or one of the weapons used, it was a weapon of choice to have maximum inflicted wounds in the stabbing where those victims would bleed out and pass away. Um, I think it goes in line with the stalker idea. And I think it's going to go in line with my next couple of videos. Again, I'm going to talk about how eyewitness testimony is not reliable, how I feel the killer was very comfortable in the home, how I feel after the murders, the crime scene was cleaned up, how I feel that there's issues with what was in the 911 and all of the things that was not in the 911 call, and why I feel the police have kept so much of the crime scene and the evidence very quiet, and how they have misled us. I feel that they have misled the public quite a bit, um, and I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to bring that forth, and we can discuss it all. So, um, hopefully, you can go back to my prior video from yesterday talking about the idea of the stalking, and if Kaylee or one of the other girls had a stalker, and you can continue and bring forth this video and the next 4 or 5 videos about the Idaho Four. They're going to just be highlighting some of the things that have already been discussed, but we're going to talk about it more in detail again. Today was about the K-bar knife, how lethal it is, how it's been used historically in combat, in the military. It was a weapon to kill. That's what it was. Um, and we can also think about this. And I really don't want to say it, but it's been something on my mind and something that bothered me. There was a video of Kaylee about 3 months before the murders. And she had come outside from the back porch because police was coming to question them about a noise complaint. And I noticed that that officer, when she showed him her ID, he took a picture of the ID. And I thought, wow, this is very strange. The reason that I thought it was strange is because why would he need to take a picture of her photo ID? If he's making a report or giving her a warning, why do you need a picture of her ID in your phone? And it made me think this because if the K-bar knife was used in the attack, this type of weapon is typically used by military, hunters, law enforcement. Moreover, in the PCA of Brett Payne, there was a statement that said, I am here to help you. Some wording like that, right? And it made it seem like that was law enforcement. And I'm wondering in my mind, could this have been a police officer? Could it have been a Moscow police officer that did these murders, that was stalking the girls, that their presence was known all the time, and that they could generally sit outside the house, patrol, do all of these checks about the noise and the noise complaints because they had a legal right to do that. Could it have been a police officer that did these murders? You think about it. You let me know what you think, because as I'm assessing information, it never made sense to me when I'm reading things like the lead investigator has about 2 years of law enforcement experience and he comes on the scene 4 hours later. It never made sense to me about the 911 call coming in at noon. But if you're protecting your brother in blue, then maybe that's why you could say that there was really no real threat, that there was a target attack, but there was not a threat. Well, maybe you knew it was not a threat because you knew that the killer was a police officer, that it was a Moscow police officer. And all of this has been to cover it up. We have to think in terms of what is possible and what is likely. Is it possible that a police officer unalived all of these students? Is it possible? Is it likely? With what is known, you know, we have to think about things logically. And when you put a lot of this together, and I can remember him taking that picture of her ID. Why did you need that? Particularly because Kaylee allegedly had a stalker. Is it a Moscow Police Department officer that unalived these four students? Let's talk about it, right? Let's do a video on that and pull all the evidence together and see what is our conclusion. Is it possible? Is it likely? I say yes to both. I say yes to both. Okay, well, remember to stay smart, stay savvy, take care, be well, my friends. I will see you in a video soon. Bye, everybody.